June 12th wasn't my first day in Busan. That matters. From the outside, it would be easy to turn this into a pretty story. A girl flies into the city of her dreams, gets swept into a purple crowd, sees BTS, cries from happiness, and walks home under a violet sky, as if life has finally handed her compensation for every painful year she had to survive. But that is not what happened. I had already been living in Busan, not in the center of the fun storm, not in the postcard version of the city, where everything glows with beaches, cafes, shop windows, and advertisements. I was staying in Gijang, a fishing district far from the crowds, far from the main concert hysteria, in a part of Busan where the city felt less like a global event and more like morning air, sea wind, wet streets, quiet houses, the smell of fish, small local stores, nearby mountains, and the strange relief of being able to hide from the world for a few days. That was my Busan before the concert. Not a stadium, not light sticks, not screams. Just a desk, a laptop, my book, loneliness, and an attempt to rebuild myself through writing. I was working on my novel. I would wake up, try to leave, write, go outside, film a little, and wonder if maybe this was what saving yourself looked like. Not a dramatic victory, not a cinematic transformation, but a quiet life on the edge of a big city, where the sea asks nothing of you. Maybe that is why the concert day hit me so hard. I wasn't walking into it from the emptiness of a tourist itinerary. I was walking into it from a small life I had already built around myself. I had a temporary home, a district, a route to the station, my own fears, my own routines. I already knew what Busan looked like in the morning, when it wasn't pretending to be a festival. I already knew there was another city beyond the fan banners, a working, damp, fishing town Busan, calm in a way that almost felt indifferent to the fact that hundreds of thousands of people were gathering inside it for 7 men. There was something almost cruel about that contrast. For the world, that day was an event. For the city, it was pressure. For Hybe, it was logistics. For fans, it was a dream. For me, it became a collision between two versions of Busan. One was my quiet Gijang, where I was trying to write a book and not fall apart. The other was the massive Asiad Stadium, where the dream turned into lines, noise, crowds, delays, disappointment, and miles of walking just to get back home. I was there from soundcheck, not just arriving at 7, not just joining the crowd an hour before the show, not just catching a piece of the concert. No, my day started much earlier, when the sun still had no intention of setting, and my body already seemed to know it was about to be tested. Soundcheck is supposed to feel like a privilege. Even the word sounds special, almost secret. You get in earlier. You see not only the finished magic, but the draft of it. You hear the voices before the big explosion. You are closer to the moment before the artists become a stage myth, when they simply appear in front of you, alive. And yes, part of it really was incredible. I won't lie and turned the entire day into a disaster. There were moments when my heart genuinely lost its usual rhythm. There were seconds when my brain couldn't catch up with the fact that this was happening to me, the person who had spent so many years watching live through a screen, was standing in Busan at a BTS soundcheck. Not at home, not in a dream, not inside someone else's video. I was there. But privilege does not cancel exhaustion. Privilege does not cancel bad organization. Privilege does not cancel the way a day can become too long before the main concert has even begun. When you enter earlier, you wait longer. When you see more, you endure more. Your body switches on before everyone else's, and by the time other people are just arriving at the stadium, you have already lived through half of an internal marathon. Soundcheck was the point where the dream was still held together by pure excitement. After that came the part no one can package beautifully into a fan post: the organization. And let's be honest, the organization that day chose to play the supporting villain. Not the dramatic villain on stage, but the one hiding by the gates, in the lines, in the unclear signs, in the crowd where everyone is supposedly moving toward happiness, but slowly becomes irritated, tired, and lost. I didn't get the gift. That sounds small when you say it directly. A gift, a fan package, something extra. Fine, I didn't get it. There are bigger problems in the world. Thank you, Captain Obvious. You may now take a seat beside all the other experts in other people's pain. But it wasn't just about the gift. It became a symbol. You buy the ticket, you go through every step. You travel to another city. You stand there from soundcheck. You give this day your energy, your money, your nerves, your time, your body. And at some point, you realize that even the thing that was supposed to be part of the experience simply never reached you. Not because you were late, not because you did something wrong, but because the system failed. And then something very childish, very honest, rises inside you. Why me again? Why, even here, in a place I wanted so badly to reach, do I still have to accept that something didn't make it to me? Something didn't work. Someone didn't explain. Someone didn't finish the job. Someone didn't think. The gift was not just a bag. It was a small proof of participation. And when you don't get it, it feels as if you have been quietly erased from the collective celebration. Just a little. After soundcheck, there was this strange in-between time that the organizers seemed to have left for people to function like actual human beings. You could leave the stadium, find water, find a restroom, gather yourself a little. Because between early entry, soundcheck, and the main show, your body had already begun filing formal complaints. I decided to do the two simplest things on earth: find a restroom and water. Not merch. Not a photo zone. Not a beautiful fan spot. A restroom and water. Two basic needs of a living human being, standing inside a huge stadium with thousands of other living humans. You would think that by 2026, civilization might have figured out at least this level of survival. Spoiler, it had not. Civilization apparently had gone looking for fan gifts and gotten lost in line. I did find water eventually. Free water by a fountain. And that was almost funny. In the middle of this enormous commercial machine, where every bracelet, package, ticket, entrance, seat, and experience seemed to have a price, salvation came in the form of simple free water. I didn't drink it like some beautiful travel vlogger. I drank it like a person who understood there was still a long concert ahead, still a crowd, still a journey home, and the body is not an app. You cannot just restart it when it starts glitching. The water was a small victory. The restroom became a separate kind of torture. The line was about 2 hours long. 2 hours. On a day when you have already been on your feet since sound check, when you don't know how long everything will be delayed, when you have to return to your seat an hour before the concert starts, because that is what the rules say, and at that point you still believe in rules. You think, if they said to return an hour early, then I must return an hour early. I didn't know yet that, judging by what happened later, the organizers didn't seem to care much about that rule at all. People kept entering, moving around, looking for seats, and coming back all evening. But at that moment, I was still a good girl inside the system of chaos. Read the rule, follow the rule, even if the system itself is already lying flat on the floor, pretending to be a rug. I stood in that line for as long as I could. I watched it barely move. I watched people shift from one foot to the other. I watched the festive masks slowly disappear from their faces. Because there is fun exhaustion. The pretty kind people later caption as, I waited for them for so many years. And then there is physical exhaustion. The humiliating, angry, biological kind. The kind where you simply need a restroom and suddenly that becomes the center of the universe. Not the stage, not BTS, not the dream. A restroom. There is an almost absurd truth inside massive events like that. You can travel to a world-scale concert, stand in a stadium where 7 people are about to appear. 7 people the entire city has rearranged itself around for 2 days. And still, the main question your body asks is not, what song will they perform? It is, will I make it to the bathroom like a normal human being? I didn't. I had to leave the line because the rule was still stuck in my head. Be back at your seat 1 hour before the show. I chose my seat. I chose order. I chose not to risk it. And by making that choice, I basically sentenced myself to several more hours of internal torture. That was when the day truly began to crack. Not when the delay happened. Not when it became clear the concert would not start at 7. Earlier than that, in that humiliating stretch between soundcheck and the show, when I realized that even the most basic things required a fight. Water became a prize. A restroom became an impossible goal. The gift was already gone. The rules existed only for the people who were still trying to behave properly inside badly organized chaos. And I was one of them. I returned to my seat on time, with water, without a restroom, carrying a growing irritation and the very clear feeling that my body was no longer part of the celebration. It was a hostage of the event. The concert was officially supposed to begin at 7. 7 o'clock lived in my head like a promise. Until 7, I could endure. Until 7, I could wait. Until 7, I could tell myself, it will start soon. All of this will turn into music. The crowd will stop being just a crowd and become a stadium. The chaos will dissolve in the first sound. But 7 came, and rescue did not. That was worse than the delay itself. A delay is a number, 75 minutes, a dry unit of time that can later be written calmly in an article. But when you are inside those 75 minutes, they do not feel like a number. They feel like pain in your legs, like tension in your back, like a phone in your hand, like trying to understand what is happening, like being suspended in midair when you are no longer elastic enough to stretch. You have already been there since soundcheck. You have already waited. You have already made it through part of the journey. You have already given the day too much for it to keep pulling more and more out of you. There were so many people around me. And the strangest thing about huge fan crowds is that they can make you feel as if you belong and expose your loneliness at the exact same time. You see the purple. You see ARMY. You see people who love the same artists, know the same songs, cried over the same videos, waited for the same return. And supposedly, you are among your people. But if you feel bad, if you don't know where to go, if you are exhausted, if you are alone, if you still somehow have to get back to distant Gijang afterward, that crowd does not become home. It becomes a sea where everyone is trying to save their own phone, their own ticket, their own water, their own seat, their own way back. No one is guilty of that. It is simply how large events work. They hold many shared emotions, but very little personal support. And at some point, I felt it sharply. I had come to a BTS concert, but I was still the only person responsible for me, for my route, for my fear, for my body, for getting back, for not falling apart when the celebration did not go the way it was supposed to. When they finally came out, when the stage came alive, when the sound hit my chest, of course something inside me still moved. It would be impossible to stand there and feel nothing. It's those BTS.
There's beauty outside control. We can go, we can go, we can go, we can go, we can go. If you wanna be animals, baby, we can be animals. If this life is so far, would you close your and it fades out? Now you see the whole night.
Those voices have become more than music for millions of people. For some, they became a survival system. And there I was, inside the massive stadium, inside the lights, inside the screams, inside the moment where reality briefly stopped being ordinary and became almost impossible. I saw them. I heard them. I was there. That is true. But another truth is that I could not fully dissolve into happiness. I was not the pure fan from a beautiful video. I was a person after soundcheck, after waiting, after not getting the gift, after the delay, after physical tension, after realizing that a day meant to feel like a gift from fate had already become a test. That did not cancel love. It simply meant that love, in real life, does not always look like glowing. Sometimes love stands on aching feet and thinks, Please, God, let everything at least go normally from here. The concert itself came to me in flashes through layers of exhaustion. I don't remember it as one smooth line. I remember pieces of light, screams, faces on screens, voices that suddenly felt closer than all the logistics around them. A moment when the stadium became one breath. A moment when I tried to hold one thought inside myself. You are here. Don't miss this. Don't let the chaos steal all of it from you. But the chaos had already taken part of that day. It had taken the lightness. It had taken the feeling of an unconditional celebration. It had taken the innocent version of the dream where a concert is supposed to heal everything in one blow. What remained was something more adult and much harsher. I stood there and understood that even a fulfilled dream can be hard. It can be loud, expensive, beautiful, long-awaited, and still heavy. A dream is not obligated to be comfortable. Sometimes it comes to you as a stadium where everything is delayed. The gift never reaches you, and you already know in advance that the hardest part will begin after the final song. Because after the concert, I still had to get home. Not to a hotel around the corner, not to a beautiful room near the stadium, not somewhere I could reach in 20 minutes. Home, to my distant, quiet fishing district of Gijang, to the place where, in the morning, I could open my laptop again, write again, and pretend again that I was a person capable of holding my life together. But between me and that home stood nighttime Busan after BTS. And that was its own chapter of hell. Just without special effects, because all the special effects had already been spent on the stage. The crowd moved out slowly. Transportation was overloaded. Roads and routes stopped being simple. Taxis turned into mythical creatures. Technically they existed, just not for me. So I walked. Kilometers. Not as a romantic post-concert stroll, but as survival on autopilot. Around 3 hours just to get home. Just get home. After a day that had started too early and had already taken too much from me. Those 3 hours after the concert may matter more to this story than the concert itself. Because that is where all the gloss disappears. Inside the stadium, you can still pretend you are part of something grand. In the crowd, you can still dissolve. In the screams, you can still hide. But when you are walking through the city at night, when your legs no longer want to be legs, when your phone becomes a map, a hope, and a threat of dying all at once, when there is a foreign language around you, foreign streets, foreign transportation, and only one thought inside you, keep going. That is when you meet your real self, not the fan, not the writer, not the traveler, just the person who is tired and still keeps walking. And maybe that sounds less beautiful than I saw BTS, but for me, it held more truth. Because seeing BTS was a miracle. Getting home afterward was the kind of achievement nobody applauds. As I walked, I kept thinking about Gijang, about my apartment, about my book, about how not long before I had been sitting in silence and writing, and now my body felt as if it had been dragged through the meat grinder of a global event. Life is strange like that. In the morning, you can be a person quietly trying to work on a book by the sea. In the afternoon, a fan at soundcheck. In the evening, part of a stadium. At night, a lonely figure walking for miles because there is no other way. And all of those versions are you, not different people, one person. The world just changes the scenery too fast, and the mind does not always have time to change costumes.
Let's go.
In Gijang, I could be composed. At the stadium, I was supposed to be happy. On the night road, I was nothing. And maybe that nothing version of me was the most honest one. Day one of the BTS concert in Busan did not become a pure fairy tale for me. It became a document of what happens when a big dream collides with the human body, with logistics, with loneliness, with disappointment, with distance, with the fact that even inside a purple ocean, you can feel as if you have been washed ashore. I didn't get the gift, but I got the story. Hard, heavy, imperfect, but mine. I got the sound check, where I saw the impossible up close. I got the concert, which did not begin when it was supposed to, and therefore will stay in my memory not only as music, but as waiting. I got 3 hours of trying to get home, when no amount of fan magic could carry me instead of my own legs. I got Busan not as a postcard, but as a test of endurance. And honestly, it hurt. But maybe that is exactly why it needs to be written down. Because someday I will forget some of the songs, the order of the set list, the exact faces of the people around me, the small details of the stadium. But I will not forget the contrast. Quiet Gijang in the morning and the enormous Asiad Stadium at night. The book and the screaming. The fishing district and the global event. Soundcheck and the gift I never received. 7 o'clock, which did not become the beginning. 8:15, which finally broke through the waiting. The night after the concert, when the celebration was over, but I still had to make my own way home. And maybe that is the entire truth of my journey. I keep thinking I am traveling toward the beautiful scene, but I end up inside a test. I think I am looking for inspiration, but I find the truth. I think I need the perfect shot, and life gives me a shaking camera, aching feet, and a story that cannot be filmed steadily, because the story itself is trembling. On June 12th, I was in Busan. I was there from soundcheck. I did not receive the gift. I survived the delay. I saw BTS. I left the stadium not as a glowing heroine, but as a person who still had 3 hours ahead of her before she could get home. And still, I made it. To the place where I could finally call a taxi. To Gijang. To my room. To my book. To the next morning. To this page. Maybe that is the main line of the day. Not my dream came true. Not everything was beautiful. Something more honest. I made it. Sometimes that is enough. Sometimes that is everything we have.
What the hell am I doing this?
수 있는 이 순간이 너무 뜻깊고 너무 아름다운 순간인 것 같아요. 보고 싶었습니다. 빨리 해야 되죠. 오늘 여러분들 먼 길인데 저희 고향에 들려주셔서 너무 감사드리고 고향에서 여러분들이 이렇게 봐서
너무 오랜만에 오는데 이렇게 또 프레스 기회를 맞춰가지고 여러분들 함께 할 수 있어서 너무 행복했고 또 좀 조금이나마 약간 바뀐 그런 것들을 좀 보여드리고 싶어가지고 물대포도 한번 쏴보고. 안 들려? 오케이, 조금이라도 특별하게 만들기
감사합니다. 여러분들 4년 만에 거의 딱 이 같은 장소에서 4년 전 이제 콘서트를 했었는데요. 그때랑 다르게 정말 여러분들 오늘 정말 분위기 너무 좋았습니다. 그때도 좋아할 거예요. 저도 지금 말을 빨리 해야 되기 때문에 지금 몇 개 정리가 안 되는데 아무튼 여러분들 오늘 너무너무 고생 많으셨고 오늘 정말